Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of the Past Your Prime podcast. My name's Alex. I'm a professional volleyball player, and I have enormous calves. I also have a great voice. Say something, Craig.
Hi, I'm Craig.
He likes problem pathologies and long walks on the beach as last one. And anything else you want to say?
Problem pathologies.
Patient pathologies.
Problem pathologies.
Alrighty.
I think I did that one even worse than last time. Oh my God.
At least I did it how you practiced.
Yep, I did say I am Craig. Oh,
You are Craig.
I am Craig. If you guys are wondering.
Oh, good.
Good Lord, that is terrible.
Well, as usual, it's time for injury updates with Alex and Craig.
Cue the music.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
You turned 39 and your knee gave up on you.
Gave up on me. It's resolved already. Yeah, so it was one of those random, came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden it's gone. I really didn't do anything for it. Just went away. Neck stuff is still gone. Ankle stuff is gone. I have no injuries right now. I have no pain.
I do. I've got a whole slew of injuries. So we talked about it last episode.
Can we start at the top? Yeah. What's the first one again?
What do you mean? From my head?
Yeah, we could just go down so we could catalog all.
So I got to play volleyball this weekend. Super jacked up about it. In some instances, I'm more athletic than I was before. In others, I'm not. So starting from the top, my shoulder is killing me from hitting volleyballs. I kind of expected that. I mean, last time I had a long bout of not playing volleyball, I came back and my shoulder was sore. So I think that's just a normal thing.
Where does it hurt?
Kind of everywhere. Yeah.
Like your shoulder hurts everywhere?
Yeah.
The whole shoulder?
A lot of it.
Okay.
A lot of the inside. So I've got to work on my shoulder a little bit more to get it back to a place. But I think that'll just come with playing more. I mean, 8 months ago, I had no shoulder problems at all, and it was completely fine. So moving down, also on the right side, my whole right side is broken right now, but my wrist hurts quite a bit, less than yesterday. So I played 2 days ago. It actually did not hurt with the actual motion of hitting the volleyball,
which I think
was cool. That was the biggest concern. Setting a volleyball or receiving, I guess, put me in a weird position in that, especially with some pace hurt. With no pace, it didn't really hurt at all, but as the ball was coming at me with any amount of force, that hurt quite a bit.
And you're dealing with your extension.
His
wrist has
been there. Yeah, it's still not. I mean, I'd say it's probably anywhere on a given day, depending on how good it's feeling, between 60 and 80% of what it was before.
And it was, that's been the focus for therapy for a bit, though, is working extension.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So because that one's a little bit of a struggle, because if you push too quickly in the early stages of rehab, you can cause the AVN, the avascular necrosis, cause the bone that he fractured to die. So you guys avoided that, but now you're dealing with the consequences of avoiding it.
Taking it slow, essentially.
So does it only hurt when you go into extension?
Pretty much, yeah. And it's when I release from extension, actually, that I typically get kind of the biggest jolt of pain. And I mean, it's a kind of quick thing. You'll also be proud of me. 0 Tiger Balm used.
Wow. Well,
I really wish I used it.
Okay, so you didn't use Tiger Balm.
Yeah.
What other? So wrist.
I taped my wrist.
So you did more than you have. Taped your wrist. So we might want to talk about a training aid today for the wrist extension support. Shoulders hurt. We might want to talk about that if we have time.
Yeah.
And then
I don't want to tape it though. Like, I know that's probably one of your recommendations, and scapular taping has always helped me in the past, but I just want to see if this is a like lack of use type thing or if it's an injury. I don't think it's an injury.
Awesome.
I think it's just hasn't been used in 8 months. Got to use it again.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Yeah. So, okay. So we got those two.
Okay.
What's the next one?
Moving down. My TFL, I'd say, is actually much better than it was 2 weeks ago. I'd say that's probably 80% recovered. When I was playing, barely thought about it.
And did you jump when you were playing?
I jumped.
Okay.
I probably jumped, I want to say, like 3 inches higher than I did 8 months ago.
Boom.
And that'll lay into some of our topic once we get through the rest of my injuries here. and then continuing to move down, my calves are blown out. I feel like I ran a full mile.
But you can't.
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet.
No, I still haven't even gotten to 0.7 yet. So I want to run again, but I was afraid of blowing up my TFL more.
So when you say blow up your calves, like how is it just?
No, they were just sore. I think I just have not. I mean, and I played three sets of volleyball, which is I wanted to play more, but just at the open gym I went to, that's all that there was available. Yeah, overall, I mean, I feel good about it, but my body is telling me that I'm older than I was 10 years ago. So,
well, it does, just to not to make it a huge side point, but it does speak to the fact when you come back from an injury, like you are, your brain did not pull back to the level that your injuries are now at. So having this massive level of soreness and discomfort afterwards is totally normal.
right.
Honestly, a good job. I was more concerned about the hitting, to be honest.
I was too, but yeah, it was the receiving. And then I've gained some athleticism just in terms of pure vertical jump, which I'm super excited about. And I feel like I just kind of went through the motions with that and saw an increase there. But in terms of my quickness and reaction time, those I need more practice to get back to just being cat-like.
So if you had to rate it, are you excited about?
Oh, I'm jacked up.
Right.
Yeah. I plan on playing again tomorrow, which is probably too soon, but nobody's going to be able to stop me now. So
Yeah, congratulations. That's actually a big deal.
thank you.
Yeah. You've now come back, so I think we're good on the injury updates. So what's our question for the podcast?
So today we want to just talk about getting back into exercise. I think my injury update perfectly leads into this. And obviously it's not getting back into exercise, it's getting back into sport for me specifically. But I think getting back into exercise or even just starting an exercise routine, trying to broaden our horizons to a bigger demographic and not necessarily only talking about injuries. You were a strength and conditioning coach for quite a long time.
My first business was a personal training business.
Right. So you have a bunch of experience. We were talking about some of the books behind us, which we've both read all of them. So
we both read all of them.
I think he was impressed that I do several of the
I was actually very impressed.
On the shelf behind us here. He's got some cool books that I've listened to some of the authors talk about their practices, but kind of just starting with the basics, right? That's what we wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, and really just diving into what we feel are the basics so that when we go deeper on these subjects in the future, this can be something you come back to. And we really want to bring it down to the level of somebody who's completely either new to exercise or maybe new to functional training exercise or using free weights instead of going to a gym and using machines. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but
that's when I broke my wrist. I mean, I couldn't hold a barbell or a dumbbell. I wasn't going to just work out with my left hand because that would be weird. Just one jacked arm.
yeah.
And so I really leveraged machines a bunch. And I want to say that's a big reason why I had a jump in my vertical over the last 8 months, because, hitting leg extension machines, using the standing calf raise machine to do squats. There's so much stuff that's available to you in a commercial gym, and most of them are, $10 a month right now, where you've got to be careful to not injure yourself, but a lot of the times the injury risk is less there. So,
well, the number one thing is to stay habitually active. And oftentimes what can happen, especially through an injury, working with a well-meaning professional, is you can get into your head that being physically active is dangerous, which is never something that I ever want to push out there. It is extremely rare that you can't be active and exercise no matter what the injury is. You just gave a great example of pushing through, using tools that make it so less degrees of freedom, less risk of you irritating the structure that you hurt. And that's why we wanted to start with the basics today and really hit through what things you should just know at a baseline and why knowing those baseline terms, what the different types of functional movements are, knowing what types of equipment, if you want to go body weight versus purchasing products, like where to start. I think I'd like to hit through all of those, but I think at the beginning,
why do you need to know the basics?
Great question. So there's whenever I'm talking to somebody who I really want them to get into physical activity, into exercise, there's a great book by BJ Fogg called Tiny Habits, which tiny
little tiny habits.
So it's ridiculous. So, so his whole idea is that if you're going to take an action, every action you take is a combination of motivation, your ability to do that action in something, he calls it a prompt, something that tells you to do it, right? So every activity that you do, if you think around those three things, you're going to understand why an action happened or why it didn't. So if your motivation is super high, it'll make it so even if you have really bad ability of doing it, you're going to do it. One of the examples is if you don't know how to ride a bike, you've never ridden a bike whatsoever, and you have really high motivation, well, you're going to have to go through that whole trial and error and learn how to ride a bike. That's why people who don't learn when they're kids struggle to ride, right? Because they don't have enough motivation to gain the ability to do that activity. Another example would be like swimming. For example, adult swimmers really struggle to actually learn the skills of swimming. But if you learn the ability when you're younger,
different risks there though. Drowning versus falling off a bike.
yeah. It's well, I mean, get hit by a car. Yeah, drowning would be horrible. Oh my God, dude.
My kid's trying to learn how to ride a bike. She's actually much better at swimming just from this past summer. But yeah, riding a bike, she's like, I've got these training wheels. I'm good.
Well, have you seen how they train little kids to swim?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't do that. We really want to, but
it is shocking
to
watch. Yeah.
Well, because those are like a baby. It's, I've got my 2-year-old. I just toss him in a pool, sink or swim.
Well, could you imagine if we did that to adults though? So yeah, no way. So to go back to the motivation versus ability versus prompt, right now, people are in the new year. There's high motivation to get back to being physically active, and the more that you have a deep knowledge, higher ability to do exercise and activity, the less motivation it takes to do it.
Right.
And so really learning the basics and learning some of the terminology, understanding some of the things that you need to have makes it so that you're actually increasing your ability, which means in the future, it'll take less motivation on your part to do it. And the whole purpose of that book, Tiny Habits, his whole idea is you start with the smallest increment possible. So for sometimes when somebody's trying to come in and get into an exercise habit, the hardest thing is actually putting it on your calendar. Build the skill set of putting a workout on your calendar, and you'll start to build your way towards having a regular exercise routine.
That was huge for me when I started working out with you. It was like an appointment. It was like I had a doctor's appointment. That people don't miss doctor's appointments. You have a doctor's appointment on your calendar, you're going to go.
You're going to go.
And that was the mindset I had to put myself into, 10, 11 years ago when I started lifting with Craig. There were other motivations needed there because of the lack of equipment and such. And we could talk about some of those things later in this podcast.
Bear crawls for life.
Yeah. Just crawl around in a gym for an hour.
You did get into good shape though.
True, I guess. But there wasn't much lifting involved at the time. This was elite athlete training. Yeah. We'll tell that story in an upcoming podcast.
Oh my gosh, I really don't want to share that story.
So just on that point, drop a comment below if there's something limiting you in exercise. I think our hope for this podcast is just to help folks with motivation kind of get some of that underlying maybe excuses or obstacles that are in people's way of just getting back into it, or maybe you've never been into it and want to start getting into it. Mm-hmm. This will hopefully kind of open up some of the basics and give people a starting point.
And there's 5 main ways that we've noticed people will struggle to at least start the exercise habit. The first one's accountability, which is what you just talked about, putting your own self on your own calendar. What's crazy is when COVID happened, we had to change up how people scheduled to come in. Before it was more of an open gym concept. And then we had people start to schedule so that they had a space for themselves, which is how our gym operates. You have your own physical space. You have a spot that's just yours. Nobody else is in it. You do your whole workout in that spot.
It's your own rack, has pretty much all the weights available right in one, 8x8 square spot or something.
Which was, it was totally different than any gym I'd ever been in before. I mean, I'd lifted in quite a few gyms, worked in a few different gyms. And what was wild is we saw that people actually showed up way more. You would think that friction to schedule would make it less likely. Like the whole idea of a 24/7 gym is that you can go anytime.
but the equipment's not always available. I think that's the difference of me going to a commercial gym right now. I do lift here at Craig's clinic once a week as well, but there are times where I'll go to the gym. It's like, oh, I've got to wait for the squat rack right now. I've got to wait for this machine, or I've got to wait for the plyo boxes. So it's really nice just knowing that like all the equipment that I know that I'm going to need for this workout is readily available.
Right there.
That said, you don't necessarily need equipment either.
No, but I mean, but that piece of it though, the part that it having the equipment there for you is beautiful. But the big part is that you put it on your calendar. And if you don't put something on the calendar, you don't make an appointment for yourself, the likelihood that you're going to show up is very low. And that is the number one thing. We found from our internal testing is that if somebody ranks low on that, so for example, if they tell us that they've packed shoes in their bag, the workout gym, clothes, and they planned on showing up to go do a workout, but then they don't, they're 33 times more likely to quit in the first 6 months.
Wow.
Isn't that nuts?
That's crazy.
So the number one thing that if you want to show up, you put it on your calendar. And if it's on there, you do it.
Like you can do all of the preparation to have yourself ready to go to the gym, but if it's not on the calendar, 30% reduction.
Yeah, I mean, 33 times more likely.
33 times
more likely. It is gigantic. The second biggest reason that people quit in the first 6 months is an injury. So if you have a flare-up of a recurrent injury or a new injury in the first 6 months and it's not managed immediately, 7 times more likely to quit. I mean, those are the two big ones. If you can manage those two, that's why our focus often is getting people the skill set to show up. That's why we actually require scheduling. And it's why, to be honest, why you see at the end of this month, a lot of people are going to drop off.
We're already past, I think it was January 10th.
Yeah.
National Quitters Day.
Is that the norm? That is just bad.
10 days.
Oh my Lord. Yeah. Well, and but that's the piece. Cause if you don't, your motivation's high at the beginning, but if you don't build the ability to show up, you're not going to continue to do the action. Because most people are in a low, unfortunately, we're typically in a low motivation state. And so when you have high motivation, you should take advantage of it to build up your abilities.
And that's why I'm a big fan of going to a gym. I know that you can have home workouts and they can be extremely good. You obviously have to have space and not necessarily equipment. But for me, just as soon as I get to the gym, like I know I'm going to work hard now. Like I've made the effort to make the 10 to 15 minute drive. I know that the equipment, everything I need is here. Maybe it's not readily available because I got to wait for somebody to finish their sets and reps, but I know I'm going to come and work out with intensity as soon as I step in that gym.
That's awesome. But you have built skill around it. You have a high level of ability. You have a high level of training history. Your biggest issue would be your new injuries.
Right.
So if I was talking with you and I'm starting to list out each of the problems, what things do I think are going to stop you? So it's accountability. We call it the rehab standard, but if you have pain in the first 6 months, comfort level in the gym. So some people have had unfortunate traumatic experiences right, where maybe you had a high school basketball coach who is a horrible person, embarrassed you in a gym setting. Those don't go away and can make you afraid to go back into an athletic facility. Coaching need, people don't understand how to use any of the equipment. They don't know how to do the movements. And then the last one is physical barriers. Those 5 things, we like to work through those 5 because if we can manage all 5 of those issues, the likelihood that you're going to keep going past the first 6 months is very high. Once you get past 6 months, we find that to be a golden zone that the likelihood of you continuing to come is extremely high.
Well, no, I think that gym anxiety is a real thing. I mean, I pretty much exclusively worked out in one of your like more private clinics for the last 10 years. And then when I broke my wrist, I was like, well, 90% of what you've got here is free weights and I can't necessarily use those. I was just about to kind of re-sign up with Craig after taking some leave from COVID and just not prioritizing it for myself, honestly.
And not putting yourself on the calendar?
Yeah, not putting myself on the calendar. So I was like ready to do that. We had talked about some of the motivation when we were meeting just over 8 months ago. But then going back to a commercial gym for me was like, I don't know.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
I did not know
because, I hadn't used a machine in 10 years. I'd only used free weights. I was I knew what I wanted to do, but then trying to merge that with what that looks like at a commercial gym was just way different for me. And it took, a week or two before I was comfortable going, but I just told myself I'm going to go. I didn't necessarily put it on the calendar, but I had my schedule each week and I wasn't going to miss. And it helped me a ton. And now, comfortable. I feel like I know folks at the gym. It's like you make these weird gym friends at the commercial gym where it's like, hey, I see you here every day. Do you have a job? I have a job.
You don't seem to have a job. You're here a lot.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's funny is Sarah and I went, Sarah's my wife, we went on a staycation this weekend. It was the first time I was in a public gym in probably,
Why did you go to a gym on a staycation?
well, so it was one of our rituals that we really like to do is like we wake up, sleep in. I don't really sleep in, but we have like a slow morning.
Okay.
Then we'll go do a workout and then we have lunch. I mean, so it's like a very,
Fit fam over here.
it's like a relaxing flow into the day. It works really well for us. But
Good.
it was the first time I saw a fitness influencer, and it was hilarious. It was the craziest things I've ever seen.
I see them at the gym as well. And it's like, how are you even getting a workout in?
Whoa.
You're over here with your tripod, having it was like her poor son was like trawling around this tripod watching this mom work out.
It wasn't even
good for her.
Was she actually working out? This one wasn't working out.
It was debatable at best.
She was doing these exercises that they were like more bizarre than anything. And it was funny. The thing that really irritated me though is she had this whole big setup. She took all this equipment outside and then just left it like a jerk.
Oh.
Isn't that crazy?
And I dealt with some of that too. Like there's a grass track area in the gym that I go to, and I like to do some of my warm up in that area. And it was like, there's a massive tripod just in the middle of this area. Like, I don't care. I'm walking right in front of it. So maybe
I love it. Well, so there's so you can work out at home. You can work out at a commercial facility like these big gyms. I mean, just
but it's wherever you're most comfortable.
Wherever you're most
if you're comfortable and can hold yourself accountable, that's all. That's really all you need.
Yeah, the mission of all our companies is to keep people physically active for their entire life. That's just it's something that's huge to me. There's going to be all the projects that I get involved in are going to be revolve around that idea, and it's interesting how often it feels great when you get somebody started on their workout journey and you make it so that they feel comfortable either going off, but then a year and a half, 2 years, you hear back from them and they're wherever they're at, they're still exercising and doing things that they learn from us. It's incredibly motivating. So if you're working with the right group, they're going to be happy wherever you feel the best at, staying physically active. Home, commercial gym, boutique gym like we have. It's whatever works best for you.
Boutique.
I
called it more private, but
boutique sounds more fancy.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so we wanted to talk just kind of like, where do you start? You're getting back into it. Where do you start? I know maybe discussing, was it foundational exercises?
Yes.
I'm dumb, so I don't know what those are. I'm a book idiot. I can read, but barely. What are five?
Did we talk about machines versus? Are we going to fundamental movement?
Either way, we can talk about functional movement. I mean, I started with machines, so we can talk about both.
So which thing would you think would be more impactful?
Let's start with machines. I mean, say, you go out, you get a $10, $20, $30 commercial gym membership. Where do you start? I mean, I've been in the gym, obviously, this year. It's the new year. I've seen so many people walk in, and I mean, I had the same feeling 8 or 9 months ago, like overwhelming. Wow, there's cardio equipment, there's free weights, there's machines, there's a track area.
Great question.
Where do you start? Your first time walking in? That was a good question.
That was a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's another one of my verbal texts. All right, there we go. I would start with what you've done previously. That sounds too simple, but the idea at this point, if your focus isn't on developing functional movements, which we'll go through what we consider the 6 functional movements, if the idea is you're just trying to work on the skill of showing up, work on your ability of showing up, I would do the things that you feel really comfortable doing. If that's just the treadmill, do the treadmill. If it's hopping on a bike and spinning for 30 minutes, I would spin on the bike for 30 minutes, because what you're working on is not the variety of exercises that you can do. It's not every machine in there that you can do. Even if there's only one machine that you know how to do that one. And then especially if you have a comfort issue in the gym.
So I just went straight to the calf, just calf raises only.
It's crazy that your calves got strained from volleyball. Then how I look at it is it's you have less degrees of freedom if you're using a machine. There's a rigidity how the machine has to be operated for you to get what you're going to do. The most general thing to do would be to hit one that has something upper body, something that's lower extremity, like your legs, something that's core related. And if you hit one of those three or all three of those in one workout, and then throw in spinning on the bike or walk on the treadmill, you have a complete workout.
Right.
And so that's kind of how I look at it. I'm not a big fan of endless and excessive variety, but I do think hitting all of those during a workout will make sure that you hit everything in your body, that you're getting a full body workout.
My gym has a cool little circuit area too that has a little timer. You hit like 10 exercises, it ends up being a 30-minute workout. And it like, that just seems like the best place to start. Like if you've never done strength training before, just start there. The machines, they have little diagrams of exactly what to do. You can get your workout done in a relatively short amount of time. And I hadn't used machines once again for a long time. So when I went back, I wasn't really able to do what I had done before. I definitely started on the bike. The bike was a normal staple of our warm up when I was working out with you previously at your clinic. So like I used that as a part of my warm up. I knew how to do banded side steps. So I feel like I'm the only weirdo at the gym using a band to do side steps on the turf area, but I don't care. I mean, I'm just doing what I feel is best for my athletic performance. So
and you learn those skills.
Yeah, exactly. So once again, using some of the things that I knew before, but then also just diving into some machines that I've never even seen before, and like, all right, well, it's got a little diagram on how to use it. What, a linear hack squat? This seems fun. All right, I don't need to use my arms to do it. Let's give it a whirl.
In those situations, say your motivation's super high and you don't quite know how to use some of those machines, that's the perfect time to hire a trainer, even if it's for one visit, to just help to facilitate. We call it facilitator or coach, to help you actually do those activities, learn all the movements that you want to learn, even have somebody write up a single workout for you. It's extremely useful, especially in this beginning phase, especially if you have some discomfort with trying the new machines without somebody else doing it for you.
And that's part. I've told Craig this before, but I've saved. He used to just give paper workouts
back in the day.
So it's just a piece of paper, sets, reps, exercises, and I actually have just like loose leaf, probably like 30 of those that I was starting to tap into before I got injured, just to try and like check on my motivation, see where it was, see if I was ready to kind of get back into a full lifting program. And so once again, just using what you have at your disposal
is so smart.
Right.
So smart. So your second part of the question was the functional movements.
Let's talk just before that about, let's say you don't want to go to a commercial gym. What would your ideal workout look like? Say you're just at home, you don't necessarily have any equipment or minimal equipment. What would a workout look like with no equipment and then with minimal equipment?
I would start with basic bodyweight exercises. So the first one is an air squat or a sit to stand. And
we shared those last time.
Did we? Yeah, you're right. And then I would pair that with a push-up or a plank. So a push-up would be you're on your stomach. We do a hand release style where you push up from the floor, come back down, lift your hands off, and then back up. Though that just hitting those two would be the easiest place to start. Rows, what's funny is rowing, like basic pulls, those are really difficult with body weight unless you have something that you can hang from like a pull-up position.
Yeah.
But core exercises, leg exercises like lunges, those are actually very easy to replicate with just body weight.
I think before working out with you, I didn't know that there were so many variations of just kind of like functional movement exercises, like bird dogs, like not ladybugs, dead bugs, ladybug.
Never, I mean, dead bugs. Yeah. There's ladybug. That's crazy.
Right. Planks, side planks, push-ups. There's so many body weight squats, body weight lunges. There's a ton of stuff you can do out there that's going to at least get you started on that progression and working on some of these functional movements. Banded exercises, I know I mentioned those earlier. I think bands are relatively inexpensive, don't take up a bunch of space, and you can get a ton of good workouts out of them.
A ton. And it's the easiest way to start. It would be just to do it at home. So that's where I would start. It would be just hitting those basic functional movements without load. And then if you say you have a little bit of money in the budget, the next thing I'd buy would be super bands, which we'll put a link in our show notes so you guys can see what a super band looks like. And then dumbbells. And all that's going to do is it's going to allow you to increase resistance on some of these specific exercises that we're about to drop into. And then say if you have the funds to buy free weights, that's where you can buy a barbell within some weights and then maybe a stand. But if you want a full system, a full gym, you're probably looking at $2,000 if you're going to buy something that's worth owning for free weights, that's quality, not going to.
I'd say about half that. I used to be a manager at a used
Oh,
sport.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I think I got away with a squat rack, pretty much a 300-pound set of free weights with a barbell and adjustable dumbbells for like $900.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's still a big investment. I was prioritizing it. I honestly never used it. That's why I go to a gym now. But this past Thursday, I wasn't able to get to the gym. I got off work super late. Really still was motivated to get a lift in. And so I have adjustable dumbbells at home. I want to say I paid like $200 for those. I definitely got a deal on them, but was able to get through a full workout, reverse lunges, single leg deadlifts, a shoulder press, an incline press, all in, 45 minutes while at home. I'm doing my banded side steps through the kitchen back and forth like 30 times. But it's, you use what you have at your disposal.
I love it. So all of those different exercises that you just lifted off, I think we should go through and explain what each of those means then.
Okay. Well, let's just get into the functional movements, functional exercises. What are they called?
Either one.
Okay.
You'll hear them described.
What do you mean by functional?
What do I mean by function? He's an idiot. And so when I'm talking to, no, he's an idiot.
Should I put a dumb face on?
Do the dumb face. We should put like a musical little jingle on there. He's a dummy. Okay. So you have 6. From our standpoint, you have 6 exercises. And if you can hit 6 functional movements, and if you can do all 6 of these functional movements, it's from there that basically every other exercise in the gym that you'll do with free weights comes from. And so the 6 are lower extremity press. Now,
lower extremity meaning legs?
Legs. If you can't tell, we did get some nice feedback that the words that we were using may have been too technical, right?
What do you mean by technical?
Oh, my Lord.
Is that
That's going to be
technology?
You just keep going. I like the kids, right? Lower extremity press. When we think of these exercises, I'm just going to hit the one that is the most typical description of that exercise, a squat. So bodyweight squat or a barbell back squat, that's a lower extremity press. A lower extremity pull would be a deadlift, a loaded hinge. We start people with kettlebell deadlifts in our facility, but you often see people with trap bars, straight bars.
Hinge meaning bending at the waist.
Bending at the hips. At the hips. So the core is stabilized, and then it's actually your hips moving, hinging, where you're producing the motion. From there, we talk about the upper extremity. So that's your arms, right? And your upper body. So you have upper extremity pressing. In that one, you have horizontal and vertical.
Is that a bench press?
It's like a bench press or a push-up. A vertical would be shoulder press, or military press would be a vertical upper extremity press. The 4th thing would be upper extremity pulling motions. So that'd be rows, inverted rows would be the horizontal version. The vertical would be chin-ups and pull-ups. And then
or a lat pull down.
Lat pull down would be a great variation. And then from there, we have your split leg exercises or single leg exercises. In that variation, you're talking about reverse lunges, split squats. The single leg versions would be like a pistol squat or a knee lunge.
Walking lunges.
Those all be variations of split leg exercises. And then the last one that we look at are core exercises. And we split that up into three different ones. So you have your transverse plane, frontal plane, and sagittal plane core exercises.
Talk more about those. I'm done with that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. So a sagittal plane would be a sit-up or a crunch or a plank. And so when you think of core exercises, you can think of ones where you're producing motion or where you're holding isometrically and then your body's moving around it. So a quadruped bird dog, which is an exercise you talk about, you're on your hands and knees, you reach out with one leg and one arm. That would be a transverse plane core stabilization exercise. Whereas a plank where you're not moving would be a sagittal plane exercise. A Russian twist, that'd be a movement-based core exercise for the transverse plane. That's going to look ridiculous. That's nice. Like doing my little shimmy dance. The one that we like the best is called the pallet press, where you're standing perpendicular to the band and you push it out and it's going to try to rotate you. You don't allow it. That would be an isometric transverse plane exercise. So we're throwing all these words in there but you're going to see there's a humongous, just a crazy amount of variety, but you can distill them down to basically these 6. And then we were talking before we started, then you'll see combinations of all those together. So a thruster, which is really got popularized by CrossFit, is a lower extremity press with an upper extremity push. So you have these combo exercises that they pull those 6 together, but if you can't master those 6, you can't do the combos either.
So a thruster would be like push press. Is that
a push press? But it would be a squat, like a front squat with a push press.
okay?
And it's it's really interesting how much variety we get from those 6, but they're all a version of those 6.
So is that what you would suggest that somebody getting back into it starts with? Body weight variations of all those exercises?
If you can get every one of those on your workout.
And you can do all of those, pretty much all of those, except for maybe the deadlift variation without weight.
You can do a hip hinge without weight. So we have, when somebody has really debilitating lumbar instabilities, we'll do
lower back instability.
Low back instability. So if you have a pain with even trying to touch your toes, and it's like the first few moments that it hurts, then it feels better, like at the end ranges, and then when you come back, on the way back, it hurts. You get this really shocking pain. We'll train the hip hinge with no weight, and the purpose of it is to regain motor control around the spine. So even in those situations, depending on how the person's pain presents, we'll totally do that. Yeah.
You had put some notes in here about muscle contractions. I'm super interested in those. I don't know if we want to fully dive into those today, but like you mentioned isometric earlier. I'd imagine some people probably don't know what an isometric is.
Okay.
I've gotten really into those in the last 8 months, just in terms of working out knee pain that I used to have. I used to have PFP, patellar femoral pain, right?
Yeah.
I'm an idiot, but I can remember things on occasion. And so what are isometrics?
So isometrics are a form of a muscle contraction. So every functional exercise we just talked about is a combination of a eccentric phase, concentric phase, and a isometric phase or isometric contraction.
Give me all 3 of those. I don't know what they are.
So isometric is where there's no motion happening. It's the one that happens. It's a hold. And it's when you're transitioning from one motion to the next, from eccentric to concentric, you go through isometric. So for example,
a wall sit
would be an isometric hold, and you'd be hitting your quads primarily. A plank is an isometric for your core. It's where you're on your elbows and to your feet or up, or side plank, same thing. Those are going to be isometrics. You're not moving. You're just creating muscle tension. Eccentric is actually the hardest for your body to do, and it's where most injuries actually happen. We're talking about from lifting. It's where you're still under tension, but you're letting the muscle lengthen.
Give me an example.
So the down phase of squatting.
Eccentric is the down.
It's the down phase. So it's like you have the bar on your back, or you have a weight in your hand, like doing a goblet squat. As you lower down, you're asking your muscles in the legs to be basically eccentrically loading the quads.
And then concentric would be the opposite of that.
Be shortening the way up. So be the way up. So when we think of exercise around the functional movements, you can actually take every one of those exercises and primarily do one of them, right? So you can do a really slow, we call it tempo, but you can do 6-second descent, and then you can hold the bottom for 5 seconds in the isometric phase, and then you can be explosive during the concentric phase. And so we can write that, typically listed in 4 digits around any of these functional movements, but you can modify how long a single rep takes by playing with those different muscle contractions. It's actually really cool.
I've heard a ton about that just in listening to folks talk about vertical jump and how using different types of squat progressions, whether it's, pushing the bar against something that you're never going to be able to lift to do an isometric. That's something that I haven't tried yet, but really want to get into now that I can use the barbell. Hopefully my injuries subside a little bit so that I can get into those. And then I've heard so much about concentric and eccentric, and I've never been able to understand which one is which. I knew it was the up and down, but...
So you just think of shortening muscle. The working muscle, if it's shortening, that's concentric. And then if it's lengthening, that's eccentric. But it's the working muscle.
I think up and down is going to be better for me.
Up and down, that's all. It may not be accurate, but that's what we'll say.
Right.
But I think, so we wanted to hit just these, I think we keep it there. I think these are good. I think it's a good basic introduction into the exercise. I think we started with what it takes to get here is probably the most important part. So if your motivation's high right now, it's time to invest in your ability to get here. And then if you need a prompt, we can talk about prompts later. But knowing that it's okay if you don't want to do it in the gym, you can figure out ways to do it at home. The investment, you can start with zero investment of money and start working out immediately. And then at the end of the day, even if you want to do machines, I think you still need to own these functional movements, because if you can't do all 6 of them, it means that you can't do your daily activity without some level of compensation.
Yeah. At the end of the day, just start something, get your body moving. You're going to end up feeling better and probably living longer.
You literally will live longer. Yes.
Quad size, big determination of morbidity. Grow your quads.
Yeah. I'm not sure about we'll have to double check that one. Are we throwing out just random?
Maybe. I already alluded to being an idiot.
Well, no, but I would actually, I bet you quad cross-sectional area would be predictive.
Yeah, because if you fall, you can get down as long as you got massive quads.
I will follow up with that. Now, we did have before we close out, do we have a comment around what a home plan is?
A home plan. What is a home plan? I would show mine, but it's on my phone, which is recording us right now.
Yeah, so what we were talking about before, if you guys do have comments or questions around any of the things that we just covered, let us know. You can message us privately.
We're small enough right now that we can answer all of them.
We literally answer all of them.
Flood us. Give us 1,000 questions. Make it hard for us to answer. This is too easy right now.
So for us, a home plan, it relates to a physical therapy rehab plan. We use that instead of saying a TheraX plan or exercise plan, because it doesn't always involve exercise.
It's like your physical therapy homework is how I've looked.
Straight up. And so for a home plan, straight up. So a home plan will cover your trigger management, things that trigger you, any education pieces, things that you need to understand and learn to manage your problem. It'll include any exercises or activities that we really, really want you to do. And then it'll also talk about if there's some level of artificial stabilization, how to apply tape or use this brace. But we'll hit all of those things. And then if there's anything kind of miscellaneous, any of those things, though, it's all specific to your getting that tissue that's hurting you or your pain better.
And the way that their clinic does it is awesome, just because they provide videos and links that they've created over the years on basically how to do every single one of these things. So
constantly updated.
Yeah. Comparatively to, I'd been to other physical therapists back in the day, and it was, they would just kind of tell you in the moment, and you're left without really understanding what you need to do to help yourself.
Well, thanks, Alex.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you may see if you're seeing PT somewhere else, they may say, yeah, like a TheraX plan. It's the same. It's similar. It's just we don't call it that.
Awesome. Well, happy to end there. Like I said, drop a comment below. Let us know why you're not exercising, and we'll help you get over those obstacles. Aside from that, comment, like, subscribe, rate it high.
Rate it high.
Share. Please share. We're about to hit 1,000 views on YouTube, and we're really excited about that. So we'll probably celebrate next week.
We are absolutely going to drink some champagne. So yeah, we'll do it on air.
All right. BYP, baby.
BYP, baby.
Take care.
Bye, guys.